Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm Jeremiah, and we're back again with another episode for you guys. I am recording this on March 13th and a lovely Monday morning. And, free agency really slowed down since Thursday, which is really expected. I really expected that to happen. But Friday, there was a lot going down, especially for New England. And the Cowboys did announce that they were going to release Tony Romo instead of trading him. So we have a lot I'm going to definitely discuss all that, and I'm definitely going to discuss the moves that the Patriots made. And I didn't get to talk about Mr. Aldon Smith, but he was in the news on Friday, and I will discuss that later in the show. But, first I'm going to discuss the Cowboys releasing Tony Romo. Well, he hasn't officially been released yet as of now. As of the time that I am recording this, around 8:30 Monday. So they couldn't find a trade partner, and it was expected that either Denver or Houston were the teams to trade or acquire Tony Romo. And the Broncos did say that they were only going to go after Tony Romo if he was a free agent. And I can understand why the Cowboys couldn't find a trade partner for Tony Romo. He just has a fat contract that you really don't want to take on. Remember, he is 37. I think he's about to count, close to $20 million against the cap. Or I think it's over $20 million. It's somewhere around that number. He was going to cost a lot towards the cap. And, of course, the Cowboys are not going to keep him because he's too expensive to keep as a backup quarterback. And Tony Romo does want to start. And there's no way that the Cowboys are going to bench Dak Prescott after being a Rookie of the Year. So there's no way that Tony Romo was going to be in a Cowboys uniform in 2017. So there would be more possible teams to go after Tony Romo since he will be released. And by the time that this episode will come out, he might be released already. But we do know that the Cowboys did not find a trade partner and that he will be released. But, since Tony Romo will be a free agent soon, I believe that the Broncos will go after him now. And the Broncos, they made some really good moves on their offensive line. I think that was one of the weakness of that team. And free agency, they signed Ronald Leary from the Cowboys. They signed him to a 4-year, $36 million deal. He's a guard. And then they signed Malik Watson for a 3-year, $18.3 $75 million deal. He is coming from Oakland. So those are two good moves that the Broncos have made to make their offensive line better. And, remember, the Broncos did lose Russell Okung, but Okung wasn't really great for the Broncos, and he did end up going to the Chargers on a 4-year, $53 million deal. So, the Broncos have made some moves on the offensive line, and the Cowboys, they have lost a lot of their offensive line players. But getting back to Tony Romo and how it impacts the quarterback, you're potentially going to sign a quarterback that's only started 4 games in 3 years. And the thing that you want to make sure you do if you do sign Tony Romo. Because the Broncos, if they happen to go after Tony Romo, which I do think they will, since he will be a free agent, they're probably going to sign him to like a 2 to 3 year deal. He may not even play all 3 years, but I do think that Tony Romo will play more than 1 year. So what the Broncos have to do is, and they already have done it, is the offensive line, improve it. And they're probably going to make some moves in the draft to improve the offensive line, whether they get starters in the second or third round, because this is a pretty weak offensive line class. But they can potentially maybe trade back to get a couple guys in around the 20s in the first round. But I think the most important thing for the Broncos, if they happen to get Tony Romo, is make sure to protect him. You know, you gotta protect him. And remember, this is a quarterback that has been injured past 3 years. He's only playing 4 games. And if Tony Romo stays healthy, he will make the Broncos or the Houston Texans the second best team in the AFC. I can't put them on top of the Patriots because of the moves they made. Even without those moves that the Patriots made this weekend, they were still going to be the top team. But Tony Romo will make the Broncos and the Texans a Super Bowl contender, the second best team in the AFC, if he stays healthy. And that's the key thing. Can Tony Romo stay healthy? And the past 2 years, and I said 3 years, but the past 2 years was only time that he started 4 games. And remember, he was slated to, you know, Dak Prescott wasn't going to be the quarterback this year in August. And, you know, Tony Romo did get hurt in one of the preseason games. And then Dak Prescott came in and then literally just stole the show. But, you know, the Texans and Broncos will not be the only teams interested. I do think that there's going to be a mystery team. And I think that mystery team could possibly be the Kansas City Chiefs. Because for a couple of reasons, you know, Nick Foles, who was the backup to Aldon Smith last year, he actually just signed to Philadelphia this morning. And, you know, Chase Daniel, who is the backup quarterback in Philly, you know, requested a trade or requested a release this morning as well. So maybe there's a chance that Tony Romo could happen to become the starter for the Chiefs, and then Aldon Smith becomes the backup. So I do think that the Chiefs will be a mystery team. I do think the one thing about Kansas City is that, you know, they made the playoffs. They haven't gone far in the playoffs, though. They've just been good enough to get to the divisional round. So I do think the Chiefs will emerge as a mystery team. And I do think the Jets will be interested as well, but there's no way that he's going to go to New York and play for that team. Maybe I don't see the Niners making a play at him. I do think that they're trying to wait and see what goes down with Kirk Cousins. There's no way that Cleveland is going to go after him. He would not sign with that team. And there's no way that he would go to Chicago because, you know, Chicago just gave Mike Glennon $15 million per year or $19 million guaranteed over 3 years. So I do think that with Tony Romo now being a free agent, he's going to either go to the Broncos, who said that they're going to pursue him if he becomes a free agent. The Texans, who traded Brock Osweiler's contract away, and they can now sign Tony Romo. They can outbid the Broncos that they want to, but I don't know how much they're willing to pay a 37-year-old quarterback. And I do think that the Chiefs will emerge as a mystery team. You know, the Chiefs have said that they haven't really been interested in Romo, but I do think if he's out in the market, you got to probably weigh your options there. So I can see those three teams there. We could have potentially a fourth team emerge. Maybe it can be someone. I can probably see Jacksonville trying to make a play at Romo because, you know, they do spend a lot of money in free agency. So I wouldn't be surprised if they throw a lot of money at Mr. Romo over there. But it'll be interesting to see this next week how the Tony Romo sweepstakes will go. So I don't know if Tony Romo is going to be on a new team this week, but I do know that the sweepstakes will begin soon. And, you know, it could take up to 1 week to 2 weeks. Who knows? But if Tony Romo is a Cowboy in 2017, I will be surprised because they're going to pay a backup quarterback a lot of money. A lot of money. All right, well, I'm going to take my first break. And when I get back, I'm going to talk about the moves that the New England Patriots have made. And man, oh man, do they get richer. The rich get richer, folks. I will talk about the moves that the Pats made when I get back to the Golden State Media Concepts football podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to Going to the Media Concepts Football Podcast. And this past weekend, we saw the Patriots make a lot of really great moves, and they got a whole lot better. And my main question is, why did the Saints and why did the Panthers make the Patriots better than they were already? Well, one of the biggest moves that we've seen this offseason is the Patriots acquiring Brandin Cooks from the New Orleans Saints. So the Saints got the number 32 overall pick in the first round. And the Saints also receive a third round pick, which is selection number 103. And the Saints receive, no, not the Saints, but the Patriots received a fourth round pick as well. So the Patriots get better with Brandin Cooks on the offense. And Brandin Cooks is the best receiver that Tom Brady will play with since Randy Moss. And remember when Randy Moss played, this team literally went undefeated that year in 2007. And, you know, I just can't believe it. This team gets a whole lot better. You know, they did lose Martellus Bennett, but I expect that to happen. The Patriots are about to get Gronkowski back. And with adding Brandin Cooks as a whole, it adds a whole other element to this offense. You know, when you go to Brandin Cooks' numbers, you know, he's had at least over 70 receptions. He's had over 115 targets. He's had at least over 1,100 yards receiving. And he's had at least 8 touchdowns in 2015, 2016. And that was with Drew Brees as quarterback, who is probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. And so he's going to go with Drew Brees to Tom Brady, who is practically the best quarterback of all time. And this tells me that, the Patriots are going all in with Tom Brady at 40 years old. So the Patriots are in a win now mode again because they don't know how long Tom Brady is going to be this good. And I understand it because, he is 40. And he's literally one injury away from being done. But, when you have a quarterback that's 40 years old, you don't know what type of player you're going to get. And I know we just saw Brady pull off the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. But I do think that the Patriots, they're going all in on Brady right now because you never know. This can be the really last good year that Tom Brady has. And that's probably the reason why the Patriots have not traded Jimmy Garoppolo. Because, what if Tom Brady does get an injury? And I'm not rooting for Tom Brady to get an injury whatsoever. But what if something does happen to Tom Brady on the field that's very unexpected? Because remember, in 2008, a lot of fans did not expect Tom Brady to be hurt that year with the ACL injury. Remember, that was unexpected, so that can happen again. And this is football, the most physical game on the planet. So I do understand the Browns, not the Browns, but I do understand the Patriots not trading Jimmy Garoppolo. And I do understand why they would want a number 1 pick for him. But with the moves that the Patriots have made, I don't think the Browns are going to want to do that. I don't think they want to make this team better with Myles Garrett on defense, because that's basically where you're going to trade for. You're basically going to trade Myles Garrett for Jimmy G. So maybe that's the reason why Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been traded yet. But anyways, going back to Brandin Cooks here, this offense just got a whole lot better. He adds a whole other element. You still got Julian Edelman there. You still got Danny Amendola. You got Chris Hogan, who broke out last year. But I do think that, this Brandin Cooks trade, it's going to make this offense dynamic. And, I can understand why Brandin Cooks was a little frustrated in St. Louis. Not in St. Louis, but New Orleans. And, this is a deal that almost included Malcolm Butler, which I kind of would have thought that would have been more fair. Because, the Saints need cornerbacks. They need a defense. But, I can understand the Saints trading away Brandin Cooks because he is due a roster bonus. He was due a roster bonus this morning. And, he is on his last year of his rookie contract. And he's probably going to get an extension somewhere. And, I do think with the emergence of Michael Thomas and with Willie Snead emerging as well, really did make Brandin Cooks expandable. So remember, he is in the last year of his contract, and the Patriots do hold the 5th-year option, but that 5th-year option will come out to $8.5 million in 2018. And remember, he's set to make $1.56 million this year. And Belichick did say that, he did say that he's been a fan of Cooks since he entered the draft at Oregon State. So, I do think Brandin Cooks, he's coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I think he's about to have his best season yet. Remember, Cooks is only 23 years old, so he's going to get better from here on out. And another move that the Patriots had made to get better was on defense. And that was trading, or I should say acquiring, Kony Ealy. So the Panthers traded Kony Ealy in a 3rd-round pick to New England for the Patriots' 2nd-round pick. So the Patriots basically moved down 8 spots in the draft, going from 64 to 72. And Ealy's in his last year of his contract as well. He's set to make a base salary of $803,600. So this defense gets a whole lot better. And with Chris Long leaving, I do understand this move. And you got Trey Flowers and Rom Nikovich there. So this can make Kony Ealy even better. And remember, the Patriots also lost Jabal Sheard. So I do think that this is a move for the defense, the defensive line to get a whole lot better. And man, oh man, I think that was one of the most underrated things about the Patriots last year was the defense. Because remember, this was the number 1 scoring defense last year. And I can understand why but I can understand why the Panthers made this move. Because, Carolina, they did bring back Julius Peppers. They re-signed Charles Johnson, Mario Addison, and Wes Horton. So I can understand why they traded away Kony Ealy, and he was set to be a free agent this year too. So I just gotta say, there's no doubt that the Patriots are the Super Bowl favorites in the AFC again. Even with a healthy Tony Romo in Denver or in Houston or maybe Kansas City, I still think this is the team that will come out on top. This is still the team to beat. And I just can't believe the rich get richer. But I do want to point out that with these 2 trades from New England, Bill Belichick doesn't have a first or second round pick. The Patriots will not have a pick until a 72nd selection in the 3rd round. And I was thinking to myself, when these deals were made, there's no way Bill Belichick goes into the draft without a first or second round pick. So I pretty much think they're not done. So honestly, I think a backup quarterback on that team will have to change that. The Patriots have said that they're not willing to part ways with Jimmy Garoppolo, but honestly, I do think they will trade him. There's no way Bill Belichick will go into the draft without a first or second round pick. I don't think there's any way. The first round pick, I can see them not going to the draft with that, but the second round pick, no, there's no way. There's no way. So I can see the Patriots making more moves, including maybe Jimmy Garoppolo to Cleveland. But I know for a fact the Patriots are not done making moves this offseason. I don't think they're done. I'm not buying that Bill Belichick is going to the draft without a first and second round pick. All right, well, I'm going to take my last break, and when I get back, I'm going to discuss Aldon Smith. And he was in the news this past Friday. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on Friday because we had so much going on. But I will discuss Aldon Smith and what the NFL or the Raiders should do when I get back to the Going to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Well, Aldon Smith was back in the news this past Friday. And remember, he is suspended from the league. He has not been reinstated. He was hoping to be reinstated by the NFL this past month. And he was detained by San Francisco police last Thursday after a vehicle in which he was a passenger in ran into a police cruiser. So, Fox affiliate in San Francisco, KTVU, they report that Aldon Smith was involved in a vehicle crash involving a police cruiser. So, KTVU reported this. And Smith was released at about 2 p.m. Pacific time. He denied to reports that he was involved in this crash. And when he was asked by reporters why he was at the police station, Smith told reporters that there was quote unquote no reason before he continued. And you know, the other people involved, there was a 25-year-old woman that was driving. She was actually being investigated to see that she was sober or not. There's also one adult man who was detained for public intoxication and should be released when he was sober, and he was a third passenger and he was cooperative. So that guy is not even part of the story. But when in a video by NBC Bay Area, Aldon Smith was just straight in denial. And when he was asked about why he was there, after he was saying no reason, he continued to say that, quote, I had to go handle something and talk to somebody. I was talking to a friend who was locked up in there, and that's what I went to go do. And he went on and said, if I did something, I would be in jail right now. Like, I didn't do anything. So we need to, if you guys want to talk about me, like, let's make these stories a little bit better, and let's put me in a better spotlight. Stop talking to me like I'm some criminal, because that's not who I am. I'm a good person. I've never done anything. So, he's saying he didn't do anything. He's saying, he's basically telling me not to treat him like a criminal. But we got to remember that Smith has been arrested 5 times since 2011. 3 of those times was involving a DUI. If I was arrested 5 times with 3 involving a DUI, I wouldn't even be able to find a job. So Aldon Smith has no idea how lucky he has it. He has all the talent in the world. This was a guy that some people thought he was going to be the next best pass rusher in the game. Because remember, in his first 2 years, his rookie year, he had 14 sacks. Then in 2012, his second year in the league, he had 19 and a half. He was 3 away from tying the record for most sacks in the season. And then, he fell off a little bit with 8.5 sacks in 2013. And of course, he started to miss games because of suspensions in 2014 and 15. He didn't play all of 16. But this was a guy that went 4 spots ahead of J.J. Watt. So, when the Niners drafted him 7th overall in 2011, they saw something in him. But, he just couldn't shake off the character issues. Aldon Smith has not been able to get right. And he's not been able to get right. And, man, it's a shame. He has all the talent in the world, and he's just wasting it like that. But what the NFL should do is, I don't think they're going to have Aldon Smith come back. I think they should just have him they should just suspend him indefinitely. I don't see Aldon Smith playing football ever again. I think this is the final straw. I do think that the Raiders should cut Aldon Smith. There's just why would you take up a roster spot for this man? And I don't even think they can cut him. If he's suspended, he's not on the active roster. So I don't even know if they can, but honestly, I think it's time for the Raiders to cut bait. I think it's time for the NFL to cut bait. Honestly, Aldon Smith just needs help. He needs to get more people around him that are positive. He needs to make a positive change in his life. And it looks like football couldn't even save Aldon Smith at all. So, with this latest incident, I don't see Aldon Smith going back into the league. And I know that he wasn't the driver. He wasn't involved, which thank goodness, because I think he was. Thank goodness, because, you know, there's a chance that he may have been intoxicated. But, you know, when you have people around you that get you in trouble like this, I do think that it's time for you to make a change in your life. You got to put better people around you. You got to put people around you that make you want to be successful. And that's what Aldon Smith is not doing. He's continuing to surround himself with people that make him do dumb things. And this wasn't even the stupidest thing that Aldon Smith has done. I still think his little stupid Periscope video from last summer or last spring was worse than this for a couple of reasons. You know, he was on video smoking, and you know, he's all, you know, this is a light up session. We all know what he was doing in that video. Man, I just think that Aldon Smith, I think he needs to get help. I think his football career is done. I don't see him coming back at all. It's tough for me to give him another chance in this at playing in the NFL. He's had his 5th and 6th chance already. Man, I can't see him coming back. Well, you know, I just don't see Reggie McKenzie and Jack Del Rio bringing this guy back into that locker room. With the way that this team has played this past year, with the guys that they put in that locker room, I don't see Jack Del Rio and Reggie McKenzie bringing this guy back in. He just doesn't put a lot of leadership. He doesn't do anything for the locker room. He just doesn't do anything for this team at all. So I think the Raiders should cut him as soon as possible. And I don't see Aldon Smith coming back to football. It's tough for me to say that because he has so much talent, but sometimes when you do a lot of dumb things, a lot of those things can outweigh the talent. And, you know, when you've been arrested 5 times in 3 years, no, not 3 years, but when you've been arrested 5 times since 2011, and you have 3 DUIs in that time span, it's tough. It's tough for me to give you a pass. It just is. All right, well, that's going to do it for me. And I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I'll be back tomorrow. I will discuss any type of news that occurs over the next 24 hours. And I did get the news of Anquan Boldin retiring after his 15th season. So I will definitely discuss Anquan Boldin tomorrow and any type of other stories that emerge over the next 24 hours. As always, I'm Jeremiah. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in, and you guys come back tomorrow.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.